We're watching the fall of this administration.
House address within this as the supervisor. There will be no comment. There will be anything that you need.
What might initially seem like the plot of a political thriller is, in fact, the unfolding drama in Dalton, Illinois, a small village once known for its peaceful streets and quiet living. Recently, it has attracted unwelcome attention for all the wrong reasons. At the heart of this controversy is Mayor Tiffany Henyard, whose tenure in office has been marked by a relentless pursuit of power, questionable dealings, and a disregard for accountability. Her leadership came under intense scrutiny during the appointment of Police Chief Lacey, which, at first, appeared routine, but soon unraveled to reveal a web of political maneuvering. Critics argue that Lacey's appointment was not based on qualifications or dedication to public service, but on his alignment with Henyard's interests. It became clear that the mayor saw in Lacey a controllable figurehead, someone whose loyalty would help her consolidate power and eliminate opposition. This strategic move exposed a broader pattern in Henyard's governance, where loyalty was valued more than merit, and dissent, no matter how principled, was swiftly suppressed. Decisions affecting Dalton's safety and administration began to seem driven more by political calculation than the welfare of the community. The fallout from Lacey's appointment revealed a system where personal and political interests appeared to dominate governance. While many residents have voiced long-standing concerns about Henyard's leadership, those within her inner circle, benefiting from her rule, continue to defend her, even calling her the best mayor Dalton has had since 1990. However, public opinion is sharply divided. Many feel betrayed, lamenting the shift from a transparent, service-oriented government to one clouded by favoritism, opaque practices, and decisions that prioritize personal gain over the public good. One of the most glaring examples of this dynamic is Henyard's use of Lacey as a compliant enforcer, ready to support her most controversial decisions. Once a village proud of its reputation for community unity, Dalton now faces the reality of being viewed as a cautionary tale of unchecked political ambition. Critics contend that Henyard's strategy of surrounding herself with loyal allies like Lacey has entrenched a system resistant to reform, ultimately undermining the integrity of Dalton's institutions. As a result, the village is facing not just a leadership crisis, but a deeper reckoning with issues of accountability and representation. With growing public scrutiny and discontent among local stakeholders, Dalton's future remains uncertain. Whether the village can recover from these turbulent times hinges on the ability of its residents to demand and enact meaningful change. Putting the collective good above the ambitions of a few, the road ahead will be challenging, but the central question remains: can Dalton restore its values and rebuild the trust that has been lost?
Very appreciative to receive the information today. We have the best mayor ever. I've been here since...
Once imagined as a peaceful village of calm streets and neighborly camaraderie, Dalton, Illinois has seen its tranquility shattered under Mayor Tiffany Henyard's leadership. A series of scandals and controversies has thrown the community into turmoil, with Henyard's reign being widely criticized as a textbook example of questionable governance. Allegations of financial mismanagement, corruption, and the blatant abuse of power have left the village deeply divided and unsettled. Her administration's tendency to silence opposing voices became especially clear when a judge issued a temporary restraining order barring her from making certain appointments without prior approval, a stark legal rebuke that underscored the contentious nature of her leadership. At the heart of this unfolding drama is Deputy Police Chief Lacey, who, rather than acting as an impartial enforcer of law and order, is widely seen as Henyard's unwavering shield and accomplice. Critics claim Lacey has been instrumental in helping the mayor consolidate power and suppress dissent, far from being a passive participant in her administration's most controversial decisions. Lacey's actions have allegedly included silencing outspoken residents and intimidating trustees who dared to question Henyard's choices, all in an effort to maintain her grip on power. Many in Dalton now view Lacey's primary loyalty as lying not with the community, but with Henyard herself, further deepening the mistrust between the administration and the people it is supposed to serve. Rather than focusing on the safety and well-being of Dalton's citizens, Lacey is seen as safeguarding Henyard from scrutiny, reinforcing the perception of a leadership driven by self-interest. This close alliance between Lacey and Henyard has left Dalton facing more than just political differences. It has exposed a fundamental breach of trust, with the very pillars of transparent and accountable governance now in question. Despite this, Henyard supporters, often those benefiting from her rule, continue to champion her as a visionary leader committed to progress. However, for the broader population of Dalton, frustration and disillusionment reign. The judge's intervention, which temporarily limited Henyard's authority, has done little to restore confidence in an administration many view as prioritizing personal gain over the welfare of the community. Once a tight-knit and quiet village, Dalton has become an unlikely stage for a troubling saga that highlights how unchecked ambition and misplaced loyalty can erode the very institutions meant to protect and serve. As Henyard's governance continues to face scrutiny, more voices within the community are speaking out, despite the fear of retaliation. The stakes have never been higher. Whether Dalton can rise above this dark chapter and reclaim its reputation as a peaceful, principled community remains uncertain. For now, the village stands as a cautionary tale of the dangers posed by power wielded without accountability or integrity.
Mayor Tiffany Henyard is suing some village.
What makes the situation in Dalton, Illinois, even more striking is the audacity with which Mayor Tiffany Henyard and Deputy Chief Lacey appear to operate, carrying out their controversial dealings in full public view. A glaring example of this is an incident where Lacey allegedly used coercive tactics to intimidate village trustees into compliance, particularly those questioning Henyard's financial practices or decisions that might expose her questionable activities. Trustees responsible for overseeing the village's finances reportedly faced immense pressure, with some even claiming they were subjected to veiled threats if they refused to support Henyard's initiatives. Meanwhile, residents began to notice that Lacey's actions were increasingly at odds with the responsibilities of a public servant. Instead of focusing on the safety and well-being of the community, his primary role seemed to revolve around shielding Henyard from scrutiny and neutralizing any opposition to her agenda. This dynamic became even more alarming as reports surfaced suggesting that Henyard and Lacey's relationship extended beyond political favors, potentially involving a misuse of public funds for personal indulgences. Evidence emerged pointing to extravagant spending that prioritized personal gain over the community's needs. One highly scrutinized example involved more than $3,000 in purchases on Amazon using village funds. These expenses had no clear justification for benefiting Dalton's residents, instead reflecting a troubling pattern of financial mismanagement. Yet, this was only the tip of the iceberg. Another glaring instance of financial recklessness involved the use of $85,000 in public funds to host a lavish party, raising serious questions about the mayor's priorities and fiscal responsibility. This misuse of public money, reportedly orchestrated by Henyard and enabled by Lacey, cast a dark shadow over Dalton's leadership, leaving residents outraged and distrustful. Henyard and her inner circle seemed to treat public resources as their personal bank account, funneling money into luxuries rather than addressing the village's pressing needs, such as improving infrastructure, enhancing public safety, or supporting essential services. These spending habits not only displayed a blatant disregard for transparency and accountability, but also reinforced the perception that those in power were more focused on self-enrichment than fulfilling their obligations to Dalton's citizens. As residents voiced their concerns, many questioned how such activities could continue with such impunity. Unfortunately, their inquiries were met with indifference or hostility from an administration determined to cling to power. The situation in Dalton has become a symbol of governance gone astray, where those entrusted with the community's future seem more concerned with personal benefit than the public good. From intimidation tactics to financial extravagance, Henyard and Lacey's actions represent a shocking betrayal of public trust, leaving the village grappling with growing disillusionment and an urgent need for accountability.
To some financial limits, we're not looking.
Not only did Deputy Chief Lacey benefit from the misappropriation of public funds, but Mayor Tiffany Henyard also ensured her loyal deputy was well rewarded, even if it meant hosting extravagant dinner parties, giving expensive gifts, or leaving large sums of money carelessly around. As is often the case when things seem too good to be true, Lacey's privileged position under Henyard's corrupt leadership eventually came crashing down. His once unshakable loyalty to the mayor was called into question when two village trustees, Trust Holes and Trust S. Brown, broke ranks and exposed the extent of the corruption. Lacey, whose political allegiance had been steadfast, now found himself embroiled in a lawsuit involving the very trustees he once relied on for support. As Henyard's wrongdoings caught up with her, her political empire began to crumble from within. Those who had been close to both Henyard and Lacey turned against them, escalating the already rampant controversy. So things took a darker turn when rumors surfaced that Lacey, long seen as the mayor's enforcer, had engaged in tax evasion, adding fuel to the fire of his growing legal troubles. The judge ruled against Henyard, declining to hold her in contempt, but warning her that future defiance of court orders could have serious consequences. Meanwhile, the walls were closing in on Lacey as well. Once Henyard's right-hand man, Lacey was now under intense scrutiny as investigations into the misuse of public funds heated up. Legal documents and court testimony revealed the full extent of his and Henyard's involvement in shady activities. As the pressure mounted, insiders reported that Lacey's once cool and collected demeanor began to crack. They claimed he started cooperating with authorities in a last-ditch attempt to save himself, signaling a sharp break from his past loyalty to Henyard. The loyal enforcer who had once helped suppress dissent was now spilling details that could further unravel Henyard's corrupt empire. But Lacey's fall from grace didn't end with his cooperation. His legal issues were only beginning. He faced accusations of civil rights violations, tax evasion, and misuse of public funds. Ire from the public was palpable, with one resident remarking, "He deserves a life sentence for his actions." Even the police union, which had previously supported him, issued a statement calling for Lacey to serve time in prison for his role in the scandal. Lacey's once dominant position had collapsed, and now he was forced to face the full weight of the law. A growing number of lawsuits piled up, each demanding accountability for the misuse of taxpayer money. At the same time, residents began to question the very legitimacy of Lacey's appointment. How had he been sworn in? Was it a legal process, or just another example of Henyard's questionable activities? Rumors had swirled for months, with no definitive answers, leading some to speculate that Lacey had been slipped into his position under the radar. One resident even remarked that it felt as though Lacey's appointment was carefully orchestrated to avoid scrutiny, saying, "We deserve to know the truth." When the truth finally came to light, it was clear that Henyard's hold on power was slipping. Her once seemingly untouchable reputation was in ruins, and her loyal enforcer Lacey was now facing multiple charges of his own. The fall from grace for both individuals was stark, and the public was left questioning how such corruption had been allowed to fester for so long. The questions surrounding Lacey's appointment remained unresolved, a loose thread in the tangled web of corruption that had engulfed Dalton. The village, once proud of its small-town charm, now found itself in the midst of a political disaster. Lacey, once the embodiment of Henyard's unchecked authority, had become the focal point of a legal and public dispute. The fallout from Henyard and Lacey's actions reached far beyond the two of them. Their corrupt practices had destroyed the community's trust in Dalton's leadership. Residents who had once placed their faith in local government now found themselves questioning everything, from the extent of the corruption to the integrity of those in charge. The damage to the community's trust was profound, and many wondered how Dalton could ever recover from the scandal. The truth, once revealed, was even more damning than anyone had imagined. The situation in Dalton became a symbol of governance gone awry, where those entrusted with the community's future prioritized their own benefit above the public good. The public outrage, fueled by revelations of financial mismanagement, intimidation tactics, and abuse of power, made it clear that the village had been taken advantage of by those meant to protect it. The consequences of Henyard and Lacey's actions left Dalton grappling with a profound loss of trust and a desperate need for accountability. As the investigation into the misuse of public funds continues, the residents of Dalton are left questioning whether they can ever recover from the damage caused by the corrupt leadership that once seemed untouchable. The unraveling of Mayor Tiffany Henyard and Deputy Chief Lacey's reign has turned Dalton into a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power and the devastating impact of corruption on a community. The fallout from Henyard's leadership in Dalton, Illinois, continues to unfold, and the consequences of her and Lacey's actions will likely be felt for years to come. While the full extent of the damage may never be fully understood, one thing is clear: the residents of Dalton are fed up. Corruption, financial mismanagement, and political games have destroyed their once peaceful community, leaving many to question if they can ever trust their local government again. The involvement of the U.S. District Court has escalated the situation, with subpoenas issued as part of a federal investigation into Henyard's administration. The intense scrutiny has sparked waves of speculation. Will Henyard and Lacey face jail time for their actions, or will they escape accountability? As the investigation progresses, it's clear that more secrets will be revealed. The question now is how far this corruption reaches, and whether Henyard's crumbling power will finally come to an end. Despite growing discontent and mounting legal challenges, Henyard has audaciously announced her candidacy for re-election. In a statement posted online, she boldly declared, "I am running for re-election as mayor of Dalton." The nerve in seeking re-election amid so many scandals is seen by some as a remarkable example of persistence, but others view it as pure arrogance. Henyard's confidence may stem from a belief that she can still hold on to power, but many wonder if it's a desperate attempt to maintain control over a situation that has spiraled beyond her grasp. Her re-election bid is far from certain, as she faces multiple opponents committed to cleaning up the mess she's left behind. One of her key challengers is Jason House, a trustee who has been at the forefront of the battle against Henyard's leadership. House and his team are running on a platform of ethical reform and accountability, aiming to restore trust in Dalton's government. House has made it clear that his campaign intends to clean house and bring integrity back to the village administration, something sorely lacking under Henyard's rule. In a recent interview, House emphasized his commitment to addressing the many issues that have surfaced during Henyard's tenure, stating, "We look forward to Election Day and hope the residents will vote for us to continue doing the work we've been doing." House and his team are unafraid to confront Henyard head-on, calling out the chaos and corruption she has fostered. Meanwhile, Henyard continues to refuse to back down, claiming that the attacks against her are politically motivated. In a fiery defense, she asserted that her opponent's accusations are nothing more than smear campaigns meant to undermine her leadership. As Election Day approaches, Henyard remains steadfast in her belief that she is the best person to lead Dalton. Despite the growing exposure of her controversial actions, she is determined to fight for another term, insisting that she is committed to serving the village for another 4 years. The legal and political battle in Dalton is far from over. The federal investigation into Henyard and Lacey's activities is intensifying, and more revelations are likely to surface in the coming months. The questions surrounding Lacey's appointment continue to haunt the village. Was it legitimate, or just another example of Henyard's questionable actions? For months, rumors have swirled about how Lacey came to power, but no definitive answers have emerged. As more details unfold, it becomes clear that the situation in Dalton is worse than anyone initially believed. The corruption within Henyard's administration has already done significant damage to the village's reputation and the community's trust in its leaders. For years, Dalton was known as a quiet, tight-knit community where residents could rely on local government to act in their best interests. That image has been shattered. People who once trusted their leaders now question everything, including how the village government was allowed to deteriorate so drastically. The financial mismanagement and blatant abuse of power have left many wondering how Dalton can recover from such a profound betrayal of public trust. While Henyard clings to her position, the clock is ticking. The investigation into Dalton's finances is ongoing, and more people within Henyard's inner circle may be implicated as the web of corruption continues to unfold. With each new revelation, the extent of the damage caused by Henyard and Lacey becomes harder to deny. The public is demanding answers, and it remains to be seen whether Henyard will be held accountable for her actions or escape justice once again. Meanwhile, Jason House and his team are making significant strides in their campaign for change. Their message is resonating with residents, many of whom are calling for a government that prioritizes transparency, accountability, and ethical leadership. House is ready to challenge Henyard at every turn, unafraid to confront the mess she has created. As Election Day draws closer, the stakes have never been higher for Dalton. The outcome of this election could determine whether the village can reclaim its reputation and rebuild the trust that Henyard's rule has so severely damaged. The story of Dalton is far from over. The investigation, legal battles, and political fight for control of the village are just beginning. As more details emerge, it will become clear whether Henyard and Lacey will face the consequences of their actions, or if they will continue to evade accountability. One thing is certain: Dalton can no longer afford to allow corruption and self-interest to define its leadership. The community deserves better, and the residents are ready to take action to ensure their voices are heard. As the investigation continues, more secrets are bound to be uncovered, and it remains to be seen just how deep the corruption in Dalton runs. Will Henyard and Lacey finally be held accountable for their crimes? Or is this just the beginning of an even larger scandal? The people of Dalton are watching closely, and the world is waiting to see what happens next. This is a pivotal moment for Dalton, a chance for the community to reclaim its future and restore integrity to its local government. Only time will tell if the residents' voices will be heard and if real change will take place. And until then, the battle for Dalton's soul rages on, and Henyard's grip on power remains precarious at best.